I don't even know what I look like.
It's on you by yourself.
Hey, you guys, it's Bridget, Therese. Welcome to episode number 9. I am close to being halfway to the end of my journey or the beginning, however you want to look at it. But it is time for a progress assessment, and that means I am going to take a look at my measurements from when we first measured about 8 weeks ago with my coach, Aaron Zambrano, well, we were going to do them tonight, but change of plans. We did them on Sunday night. And so we're just going to talk about it, share the measurements from the initial measurements, and also the measurements on Sunday. So today, I have a microphone. I don't know if you can see that. Hopefully it's working. We're trying out some new stuff today. My show is being produced by the wonderful John Medina, hosted again by the lovely Sober. I'm wearing some more fun clothes. So thank you to both of my sponsors. I appreciate their support and their help and for believing in me. And of course, one of my main sponsors is iFit Model, and today I have with me the wonderful, the lovely, the handsome Coach Aaron Zambrano.
What's up, guys?
Today, we've had a chance to kind of talk about my measurements. I mulled over them. I've looked at them for a while, and actually, I'm going to pause for just a second here and see if we are live.
We are live.
We are live?
Yes, we are.
Okay, I'm going to share it to my personal profile because we're doing things a little bit different. Today, we are hosting it from my page. So
why don't I talk a little bit about kind of where we were before?
Okay.
So back in January when she did, I believe it was episode 2, right? Episode 2?
Episode 2.
Episode 2. I did her measurements live on air. And then I basically went over and told her that she needed to gain about, what was it?
It was 11 pounds. I got mad at you.
It was anywhere between 11, 12, 13 pounds of muscle that she needed to gain. And the whole goal was just to try to get her to have as much muscle as possible going into her show on May 27th in Mexico City. And so what I had to do is she still needed to lose body fat, but more importantly, she needed to gain muscle. So what I decided to do was just give her more food so she could start to gain that muscle, but really try to keep that fat under control.
It's a tricky thing. It sounds hard. I mean, it sounds pretty simple, but it's not that.
It's simple in concept because typically what happens is in order to gain muscle, you need to eat over a certain number of calories. In order to lose fat, you need to eat under a certain number of calories. So in order to maintain her fat but increase her muscle, we needed to find that balance where she was able to gain that muscle without really losing or gaining any fat. And so we were able to do that because you were able to gain 5 pounds of muscle since the last time.
So let's talk about my measurements. Why don't you pull it up on your phone and let's go through them real quick.
Well, basically, your fat did exactly what we wanted it to do.
Okay.
Stay the same.
Yeah.
So it didn't move. It kind of went down a little bit. It went down, well, I'll tell you, it went down almost an entire pound. It was like 0.95 pounds. So we'll just say a full pound. So your fat went down a full pound, even though we weren't really even trying.
But I feel like it shows a lot more than just a pound.
Yeah, but you were able to gain 5 pounds of muscle.
That's what I'm talking about, those gun shows.
So she was able to gain 5 pounds of muscle. She lost 1 pound of fat, which, again, that wasn't even our goal. Okay. Our goal was just try to increase muscle size, and we were able to do that. So we're still on track. You still have about another month of gaining before we really have to start focusing on losing fat. And I think one of the mistakes that a lot of people make, especially when they're competing for a show, they think that the only thing that they need to do is lose fat. And so they put all their emphasis on losing fat and not enough emphasis on gaining muscle. I know how her body's going to respond, and I know exactly when the right timing is to start focusing on losing fat. And if this is your first time doing a show and you're doing it on your own, chances are you're going to struggle with, when you should, when that right timing is. So everybody wants to get lean, so they always start getting lean a lot faster.
And it's funny you bring that up because a lot of people have already been asking me, well, once you start competing, everybody knows everything about everything. So I have people approaching me in the gym all the time or just anywhere saying, oh, are you doing this? Are you doing that? So a couple things I wanted to talk to him about was like, well, people have planted the seed in my head that I'm already too lean. And the reason I got lean so fast is because I actually started following the program, believe it or not. So I've always had a program from him. I've always had my nutrition. I've always had my exercise. But I didn't start taking it super, super serious until I put it out there that I was competing, and I had the accountability of you guys and did the date on my calendar. So what happened was I started getting in my 6 meals. I started eating exactly my measurements, and to me, it felt like the fat fell off me, and my abs all of a sudden popped out, and I just started looking a lot better. So then people already were like, "You're leaning out too fast. You're getting too small. Like, are you already cutting your carbs?" So immediately, and this is one of the things I wanted to talk about was the misconceptions, is that everybody thinks that training for a show immediately means no carbs.
Right. I'm sharing it on. I'm
Okay.
sharing it.
Thank
I'm sharing
you.
it.
He's
I'm
sharing
showing
it.
the love.
He's always on his phone.
Come on, keep going.
Well, that was for you to jump in and say that we're not cutting carbs. I'm actually eating a lot more carbs. And after our last assessment, we had the conversation about it too, because I didn't want to be too lean. Because I don't want to go into the show being skinny. And one of my friends, she's like, "Oh, anybody can go to a show being skinny. It's having the muscle that is difficult to do." And my goal is to go into the show with having some nice legs, having that good upper body, and I'm fortunate enough that my abs have already started popping out, so I know that will be there on the day of the show. But cutting carbs is not, it's not what you think it is. It's not cutting pizza. I've seen that meme. You're not taking it away from you at this point.
Right. So, and I'll kind of explain what we had. So when we first started this entire process, I would say probably back in August, maybe?
Yeah, August was when I started. Finally put my mind back to training and really being focused.
So August came around, and I'll just tell you the whole story because it's good.
Story time.
It's good that you know. So in August of last year, she's like, "Okay, I'm ready to compete. I want a workout. I want a diet. I want the whole thing." Mm-hmm. So I gave her a workout and a diet. And so a month later, she comes in for her follow up, and I measure her and see how she's doing.
I only see her once a month. I have to make appointments with him too.
Yes, she has to make appointments with
I
me.
want him to take me serious.
So I'm looking at everything right here. So basically what happened is after the first month, her fat mass actually went up, and her lean body mass actually went down. So obviously
we don't like that.
No, we don't want that. We don't want her fat mass to go up, and we don't want her muscle mass to go down. So I was like, okay, well, I'm not going to give you any more food because you're obviously not following the plan the way it needs to. So the next time she comes in, the next time she comes in, she actually sees pretty decent results. She gains 4 pounds of muscle, and she loses 4 pounds of fat. So her weight stays exactly the same. So now she's on the right track. And now
I probably
she's
got
moving
mad
along.
at first too.
And then she kept following the plan. And so basically, long story short, she followed the plan, but she wasn't following it super intense. And so about 5 months go by, 4 or 5 months go by, and her results are kind of up and down. Sometimes they're good, sometimes they're bad. Sometimes she goes backwards, sometimes she takes a step forward. But she pretty much stayed about the same. She progressed a little bit.
It was kind of freaky because I would weigh in and I would be the exact same amount to the point.
So then what happened is when she decided that she was going to put this out on a show and let everybody know that she was going to do a show, she got very serious about her plan. So even though her plan, her actual macros and everything stayed exactly the same, she was able to lose like 5 pounds of fat in 30 days, just like that, because all she didn't change her plan. She changed her execution. And that's really where the change came. So when she came in and I saw that she lost 5 pounds of fat, I had to give her more food. And then she came in again, and I noticed that she's still losing fat at a pretty fast rate, but she's not gaining the muscle that we want. I had to give her more food. So 3 times in a row, I had to give her more food. Now, it's easy for somebody to see you and look and say, oh, you're too skinny, you're too small. Yeah. And to say, oh, your coach doesn't know what you're doing and make you question your coach, which
that happens.
Yes,
it does happen.
And that happened. And so that happened.
Stop pointing at me
I'm
like
sorry. But anyhow, so
she
got really, really small because she was losing all this fat because she finally started executing her plan, and I was still trying to give her more food to try to increase her muscle size. But all that somebody saw was they just saw that she was small. That's all they saw. They saw that she was small, and they said, oh, you're too small, you're way too lean. your coach must not know what he's doing.
They didn't say that. Everybody knows.
That's what they're thinking, right? That's what people think. People think your coach must not know what you're doing because you're too small and you're way too far out to be this lean.
Yeah.
Where really I was doing everything I could to try to put food in her body. Mm-hmm. She just finally started executing 100%. Yeah. So the moral of the story is don't listen to other people. Always listen to your coach.
The moral of the story is I should have been doing this a long time ago because, like, to me it felt like, oh, all of a sudden, like, because I'm doing cardio, because I'm doing this or that, now I'm losing weight. Whereas, like, losing fat, I should say, had I done that back in August and been serious about it, I would have had that
15,
experience.
20 pounds of muscle.
Well, I don't know what I would do with all of that muscle, but probably I'd be figure then. Yeah. But now we're left with, like, okay, this is where I'm at. Did we say where I'm at?
Yeah, we said.
Well, I don't remember what I was. Where I'm at now, and so now it's like a balance of losing fat and maintaining and gaining, still trying to gain some muscle before the show. So we're like halfway, but would you say another month before that?
Yeah, so you still need to gain about another, in an ideal world, you would still need to gain another 10 to 15 pounds of muscle.
Oh, hey, you can't add that now.
I'm just saying, in an ideal world, you would still gain another 10 to 15 pounds of muscle. So we have about 30 more days before we're going to try to put on as much muscle as we possibly can. And so we're just going to see what we can do. And then at that point, you kind of are what you are. We're not going to be able to change your muscle mass anymore. And the only thing we can do is focus on getting you leaner.
Okay. So one of the things I wanted to talk to you about, and for reasons we do not need to mention, I researched other coaches and was looking around at just kind of how other people do it. And one of the coaches that I saw out there, and there's a million different ways to do it, but you know, I'm very comfortable with his way of doing it, obviously, because I want to eat. Like, cutting carbs at this early in the game is just not healthy.
Cutting carbs, period.
Yeah. I mean, everyone's like, are you cutting your carbs? I was like, no, I'm going to be eating pancakes today on my show. What are you talking about? Like, no, that's not going to happen. But, like, other things that people do, and that was kind of what kind of, like, was not alarming to me, but it was just kind of made me feel more comfortable with working with Aaron and iFit Model was, they prescribe a lot of stuff like waist trainers.
Other coaches, not
other coaches,
right.
And that, yeah.
Please don't put me in that.
No. But other coaches are prescribing waist trainers, which are the things that you'll see these hot models with the ripped abs wearing. You'll see them doing these fat burners, these belly wraps, and all these other different things. And talk to me about that. Like, why do you not use those things for a show? Like, is it easier? Is it just a hack? Like, is it unhealthy?
Well, unhealthy mentally.
Mentally?
Yeah, but it's not necessarily unhealthy physically. Back in the day, I would say, don't quote me on this, but it was way back in the days, like of the Egyptians and the Africans and all this stuff, right? So back then, they used to have this tribe that they used to put rings between their necks. And so their whole goal was to try to expand their neck and try to make their neck really long, contour their body.
Yeah.
If you go even further back, like mummies and stuff, they used to get babies and they used to try to get their heads to make them look like cones, right? They would try to get their babies to conform, and their head would actually grow in that particular area.
He watches a lot of History Channel.
I do. And so you're like, what the hell is the point of what you're saying? So that's basically what these waist trainers are.
Okay.
Is they are intended to contour your body, but it's not a permanent solution. It's just a very short-term solution. If you just get a belt and you just put it around your body and you keep it as tight as you possibly can, like all day long, and then you take that off, like you're going to have like a dip in your waist. Yeah. But in a matter of hours, it's going to come right back out. Yeah. So is it helping you lose fat? Absolutely not. It is the biggest joke ever.
So it's like a trend, a fad, and it's something people are trying to do just to cut corners and not put in the work. It
doesn't work. Yeah. It can make your waist appear smaller because you're making it in tight, but it's not a permanent solution. It is a thing that people do just to trick guys at the club to make them think that they have little waist and big booties.
Oh.
So if you're out there and you're thinking about using a waist trainer, seriously, don't waste your time. It is the biggest joke ever. And there's a lot of coaches, there's a lot of people who are prescribing that. Do you know why they're prescribing that?
No.
Not because they actually think it works. It's because they get paid every single time that you buy it.
Oh, okay. It's sales.
It's a sales thing.
Yeah.
It's a sales thing.
And what about fat burners and belly wraps and things like that? Should I be doing those?
No.
I was thinking about saran wrapping myself tonight.
So fat burners are also a joke. So there's nothing that you're going to take that's actually going to melt the fat away. What's going to melt the fat away is your metabolism, making sure that your metabolism is running at a high level, being in a caloric deficit, and all this other formula type stuff that I don't want to get into. Exactly. So fat burners, basically this is what fat burners are. They're normally a stimulant, okay? And a stimulant is like caffeine, okay? So they give you a lot of energy, they get you super excited, and then they allow you to go into the gym and work and do a lot of work. And if you do a lot of work, you burn a lot of calories. Which
is that
means
what
you burn
makes
a lot
like
of
your
fat.
body hot too? And
Yeah,
kind of,
so it's got like this thermogenic, right, which you burn more calories, and it's again it's complete baloney. Really, the only reason that I would even suggest a fat burner to anybody is because a lot of times fat burners have an appetite suppressant. So if you're going into your show and let's say you're eating 0 carbs or something and you're just hungry all the time, well, then you can take a fat burner because that will actually suppress your appetite. But it's also dangerous because it has a stimulant. You don't have a lot of food in you, and you tend to like get real loopy. So I can tell you that all of 2015 and all of 2016, I had 0 clients that took fat burners. It just doesn't make a lot of sense. You're not going to get any bang for your buck. It just doesn't make a lot of sense at all. So don't get sucked into the hype of what's going to help you lose fat faster. Don't get sucked into all that. At the end of the day, I've been doing this for 16 years, and at the end of the day, what's going to get you to lose fat is making sure you're following the right diet and you're following the right workout. You can get 100% the results that you want without taking a single supplement.
A single supplement?
Without taking anything. You can actually do it without taking any protein. Even though I recommend whey protein, whey protein and maybe a carb powder, and that's about it. But other than that, you don't really need to take anything else.
Yeah, I think that's one of the things I appreciate about your style of training too, is that it's not all supplement based. And that's something we see a lot with different coaches and other. And nothing. This isn't a knock because there's, like I said, there's a million different ways to get to the same destination. It's just what works for you. And I prefer to not be on a lot of supplements and have all these. It gets expensive for one, super expensive. But not only that, it's like
it's not necessary.
It's not necessary because it's like I literally all I'm doing is a whey protein powder after my workout, and just eating the food that I was supposed to has significantly changed my body in just a short amount of time. I say, like, everybody has their I'm fat phase or their definition of how they feel. So I had my juicy phase, and I went from being juicy to like lean so fast that I think that's why people were reacting like, oh, you're too lean already. You need another cheat meal. You need this. You need that. And people are like immediately jump to conclusions. But one thing I also want to say, and I'll just be like open and honest about this one, is that because we had this conversation, is like I'm fortunate enough that I don't store a lot of fat in my abs. And so we had this conversation about how I was like, well, because that's what I see. When I look in the mirror, I can see my muscles in my biceps and I can see my abs. So I'm like, oh, shoot, I don't need cardio. I don't need to do all these things. But, like, I store my fat in other places. So we talked about kind of, like, we refer to Instagram models a lot, or Instagram kind of in a way of, like, that's where people put out their best. Like, you can pick out one fitness model and you can go through her or his, all their pictures. And if you notice, if you look long enough, they always have the same pose.
Angle. Yeah,
the same angle. They have that one left cheek that works better than the other right cheek, and they're only going to show you their best side. So for me, I could post ab pictures all day and be like, look at how lean I'm getting, but like, I'm not going to be posting pictures of the backside of my legs yet, because that would be my weak area. That's like my legs are my weak spot. Like underneath my butt cheeks, there's like not a pretty sight yet. So I'm just starting to I've seen significant changes in that already, but it's something where just because my stomach looks good doesn't mean that I.
So you don't store. You barely store any fat at all in your abs, and everything is lower half.
Yeah.
And so what a lot of people who are like that, what they tend to do is they tend to trick people into thinking that, oh, look, I'm super shredded.
Yeah.
All they do is throw on a pair of yoga pants, and on a pair of yoga pants, just about anybody can look good.
Right.
You know, if you're somewhat small and you've got a little bit of shape. But the minute you get into a suit, or you get into some little shorts, or you get into, you know, something small, all those things will start to get exposed. And so, you know, I guess it's what people have to do to market themselves, but the reality is that person may not store any fat at all in their abs, and that's why they're always showing it.
Yeah. Yeah. And I mean, even for me, like a lot of my photo shoots, I'll wear pants, but I'll wear a crop top or I'll do the sports bra or
It's
whatever.
your genetics to
Yeah.
not store fat in your abs. And there's a lot of people who are watching it, that's the first place that they store it.
Yeah.
You know, and so they try to compare themselves to you and say, oh, what are
Yeah.
you doing? You must be doing something right because you don't store any fat in your abs. But really, it's just genetics. Like, you don't store any fat in your abs. But
Yeah.
there's people out there who have amazing butts and they don't store any fat in their butt, and it looks absolutely amazing, but they store it all in their fat.
Yeah.
I mean,
Or
in their stomach.
Yeah.
Yeah, so, you know, you got to work with your genetics, and you got to know, you know, that sometimes somebody who's super shredded and lean in one particular area doesn't necessarily mean they're shredded in all
Yeah.
areas. And that don't compare yourself to them. Like,
Yeah.
you just, at the end of the day, you just got to lose fat if that's your goal.
And on that topic too, because he told me one time when we were measuring, because one of the measurements is the back of your tricep, that I store a lot of fat in my triceps. So, so here's me at the gym the next time, like, 'cause, you know, stuff like that messes with my
You store
head.
fat in your triceps, what do you have to do?
I was doing extra tricep dips. So one day he came into the gym to work out with me. I'm like, hey, I got to do extra tricep dips because I got extra fat in my triceps. And he's like, I mean, you can tell him what you said.
That's not how it works.
I'm like, what do you mean? If I do
There's no such
more.
thing as spot reducing. You know, everybody's heard that there's no such thing as spot reducing, right? So we all
But
know
I
that.
fought.
We all understand that. There's no such thing. But a lot of people still don't get it, because if they store extra fat in their abs, what do? They go do sit-ups
Yes.
to try to get a flatter stomach, you know, or if they have extra fat on their triceps, they go do triceps.
Well,
or if they have love handles,
yeah.
they'll do the twisty stuff.
Yeah.
You know, to try to get rid of that. But that's not how you get rid of fat. You get rid
Yeah.
of fat with your diet and your metabolism, and your body will naturally take away the body fat wherever it wants to. Wherever you're genetically predisposed to take off body fat, that's where you're going to take off body fat.
Yeah. Yeah. So it was kind of funny because I mean, I was like, well, if I get more muscle in my triceps, then it'll make it different, you know, less fat there. But
It doesn't. All it does
doesn't.
is it builds the muscle, and the fat lies on top of the muscle.
Yeah.
So it builds the muscle and it pushes the fat out. So in reality, you're actually making your arms look fatter,
Right.
because you're not getting your arms any leaner, and you're just building the muscle underneath. So your arm
Yeah.
looks bigger, and it's still just as jiggly as it was before.
So one of the things you told me when we had that conversation was like, so you take how many body sites of measurement? Is it 4?
4. Yeah.
Four for the females?
I could do more, but there's really no point.
Yeah. So what we're looking at now to measure my progress. So right now, off camera, we measure every 2 weeks. But I just wanted to talk about like the first time we measured and the time we measured on Sunday, which was 8 weeks. But we are monitoring it every 2 weeks. And so right now we're looking at my skin folds to go down.
Yeah.
Yeah. So
Yeah, so really what's happening now is actually not even skin folds. We still want her skin folds to go down. We would still want her body fat number to go down. But at the end of the day, like I said, she doesn't store a lot of fat in her abs. So she might measure a lot leaner than what she really is, because she doesn't store any fat in her abs. And that's
Sure.
one of the places that I do it. And she stores a lot of her fat in the back of her legs and in her butt. So if I measured that, then that would be a more accurate way of doing it. So
Sure.
really
Okay.
what I'm doing is I'm just looking at the back of her legs and her butt to see if that area is looking the way that it needs to look for the show. And the number is just a reference point.
Okay.
It's not, we don't necessarily need to get to 10% body
But-
fat. I just need your butt to look the way it needs to look.
Yeah, but to I guess the point I was going at was like when those measurements go down, it goes down everywhere. So
Everywhere.
if my stomach is going down, then it's going down in my triceps and
Do I
my
have
legs.
time for a quick story?
Quick story.
All right, quick story. Really quick story. So I had a guy that came in today, and he's lost 30 pounds in 6 weeks.
Whoa.
Yeah, you know who I'm talking about.
I don't, but
You
high five,
know.
that's awesome. Okay.
Anyhow, lost 30 pounds in 6 weeks.
That's
He's
crazy.
getting ready for a show. And he told me, he said, Aaron, I'm just not losing this right here. I'm just not losing it at all. And I was like, yeah, you are. You actually have lost more there than anywhere else. He's like, no,
Wow.
I just don't feel like it's going anywhere. So I showed him his measurements. And I said, his measurements on his chest went down like 8 millimeters of skin fold. On his thigh, it actually stayed exactly the same. But on his ab, it went down like 15.
Wow.
Like, yeah, it went down a lot. And he's like, well, how come I can't see it? How come
Yeah.
I cannot see that I'm actually going down there? And so that's a problem that a lot of people have is they're like, oh, my stomach is always the last to go. It's always the hardest. And that's exactly what he said. It's so hard to get rid of this. And so I told him, I was like, no, you're actually losing fat faster in your abs and you don't realize it until you saw these measurements. And so I told him, I said, let me give you an analogy. The analogy is, imagine that you have those big 5-gallon water jugs, okay? You go into your bathtub, you fill up your bathtub. Then I tell you to get those 5-gallon water jugs and go fill up the jugs with the water that's in that tub. What's going to happen is you're going to see a significant drop in the water of the tub, right? So you have 10 gallons of water now because you filled up those jugs. You're going to see a significant drop in that water, okay? Well, let's say tomorrow I say, hey, let's go out to Galveston, okay? And I want you to bring those empty gallon jugs that you have, those 5-gallon jugs. And I tell you, I say, go out there and I want you to fill those jugs up with the water in the Gulf. And you go out there, you fill it up, and I'm going to say, okay, what happened to the level of that water? You're going to be like, nothing happened. And we're like, well,
right.
Something happened because you have 10 gallons of water in your
Yeah.
hand. So just because it's happening, you just can't see it because there's so much there to start off with. And so that's what happens to people's bodies is they have a lot of fat in a particular area, and it looks like it's not going down, but chances are it is going down. It's just there's so much there to start off with that you can't see the difference. You'll start seeing all the other areas really fast, but you just won't see it there as quick because there's a lot to start off with.
Okay. So before we wrap up, if you guys have any questions for either myself or Aaron, go ahead and post them, and John will let us know if you have any questions for us. If you found this valuable, if you're a first-time competitor, or you think that somebody you know would be interested in hearing kind of the whole process that I'm going through as I'm training for my show in Mexico City, feel free to share that, tag them with it, and thank you so much for watching. So go ahead and post any questions if you have it. But before we go, based on where I'm at right now, and I'm about, I'm talking to you.
I know, I'm listening.
11 weeks out.
Listen, I'm watching your...
He's watching his phone.
No, I'm watching the comments.
I'm right here.
I'm watching the comments. Go.
He's got it. He's
right.
got us. We got a producer today. We don't have to even be on our phone. Somebody put mine down. So we're about halfway there-ish. Coach, put your coach hat on. What is going to be my main focus? Like, what can I not mess up? What do I have to be perfect on besides everything? What do we do from
here?
Well,
the main thing is that we want to continue to build muscle. So muscle is the hardest thing in the world to build. That's why we're waiting to the very end to start losing fat.
Right.
There's probably a lot of people out there that say, I struggle with losing fat. No, fat is the easiest thing in the world to lose. Okay, if you do it right, if you have the right formula. So really right now, it's all about gaining muscle. So what can you not do? Number one, you cannot miss meals. The minute that you miss meals is the minute that your muscles aren't getting the nutrients that they need to grow.
Yeah.
Number two, you can't miss workouts. Obviously, that's self-explanatory. But the most important thing is you can't just go in there and have a janky workout. You can't go in there and just go through